One of the traditions in my family is that every year at Christmas, when we gather at Mom and Dad's house, Dad always goes out and gets his favorite movie. He gets it from the shelf, and we all have to sit down and watch. Sometime during the Christmas holidays, we watch It's a Wonderful Life. You know the story with Jimmy Stewart, and he plays a man, George Bailey, who has a dream. And his main dream is to get out of Bedford Falls, his hometown, to leave the family business behind and to travel the world. But one situation after another interrupts his plans. He never gets to leave. But he has to stay and he has to run the family business, the Bailey Building and Loan. Through that business, he helps a lot of people, but it weighs on him, and it never makes a lot of money, but it keeps going. And he doesn't see, he knows that he helps a lot of people do things that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. But it just becomes a lot for him. It becomes way too much for George when his uncle loses all of their money and George is driven to the point of taking his own life. It gets serious. Just before he jumps off that bridge, he prays a prayer that many of us have probably thought of at least once in our life. Help me. Help me. You know, it's a simple prayer, but it shows a desperation of one who has finally realized he can't do it on his own. Now for George, God's help comes in the form of Clarence, his guardian angel. Through Clarence, God has given the opportunity, George is given the opportunity to see what life would be like without him. And in the process, George comes to a remarkable revelation. He's always seen his life in kind of a linear fashion. You know, we move from point A to point B. We start here, we do the work we're supposed to do, and we're supposed to end up here. And that's the way life should work. And I imagine most of us live our lives that way. You know, we start off and we go to school, we get our degree, and after we get our degree, then we go out and find a job, and then we go and we get married, right? And then we have children. We don't always follow, A to B doesn't always follow the same path for everybody. Sometimes we have our children, then go to school, then get married, and there's different ways of doing it, you know. Sometimes we have our children, think we're done, and then another one comes along. But in our minds, we wanted to go from that point A to point B. We want to live that linear life. He wants to go from Bedford Falls, and he's done his time. He went to school, and he was supposed to go, but he couldn't go. And so his brother gets to go. And he wants to go again, and something else happens, and he can't go. And he's ready to travel the world. And he gets married, and he's going to go and travel with his wife. He can't leave. He feels that his life dreams have been interrupted, and everybody else is getting to live their dreams. George lets fear get in the way of his life at this point in the movie. The fear of losing all his money, the fear of losing his business, the fear of losing his family, and it just makes him want to stop living. Throughout the movie, George gets to see what life would be like without him. And slowly, he begins to realize how much of a difference he made in other people's lives, and how much of a difference all those lives made in his. See, the story of George Bailey shows us that life is not just linear. It's not just moving from point A to point B. But really, we move in our lives kind of like circles. And different episodes in our lives are the different circles in our lives. A story of our lives is like a series of circles that intersect and intertwine with other people's circles. Sometimes even being completely encompassed in each other. So we become bound together by our circumstances. Before I came to Gibson, you didn't know who I was. And I'd lived my life, and I didn't know who you were, and you were living your life, and our circles were just going. But now that we've come together, our circles, it didn't just stop one day. Life didn't stop for all of us on June 19th or 21st, whenever we moved in, or last Sunday, and we started something else. Our lives continue to go, but those circles have intersected. And we're bound together by those experiences. That's what's happening in our text today. If you tried to read this whole passage as a linear story, it doesn't make a lot of sense. On the surface, it looks like Mark is telling one story of Jairus and his 12-year-old daughter who is gravely ill, about to die. But right in the middle of the story, it's interrupted with this woman who comes and touches Jesus' cloak, just the hem of his garment. Now, first we have Jairus. His bold actions make it easy for us to believe that he was a stereotypical doting father about his precious little girl. If he was around today, he would probably be the father that coached her soccer team, attended all the ballet recitals, listened to her practicing the piano. Now, Jairus was an official in the synagogue, and I'm sure that he kept her up to date on her religious education as well, was helping her to grow into a proper Jewish woman, and she was getting close in that culture to the age of being married. So you can imagine the devastation, all the love that he put into that life, and he felt like he was about to lose it. Jairus' official position in the synagogue was most likely a special appointment to supervise the observance of the law, especially regarding things that were clean and unclean. Now, Jairus has this 12-year-old daughter, and the daughter's dying. And the law is clear about this. To touch a dead person made one unclean. So we watch as this leader of the synagogue puts aside all of his professional trappings in order to fully become a father. In the case of situational ethics, he must respond to what's happening with his family. And he puts that ahead of what he's supposed to be doing as an official. You see, even within our own lives, we see here those circles intersect with each other, sometimes conflict with each other. The professional, the personal, the private, the public. Jairus could have chosen one over the other. He could have let fear immobilize him. Fear of losing his daughter, fear of losing his position, fear of what others might think. Maybe they said, well, maybe you just don't have enough faith. That's why your daughter is sick. We saw that in another story. All of those things are going through Jairus' mind. And fear is just bearing down on him. But Jairus believed that Jesus could do something. We don't know why he had such faith in Jesus. We don't know that part of the circle of his life. But there was something about Jesus that caught Jairus' attention. And he believed that Jesus could help. And the love that Jairus had for his daughter helped him to have the courage to approach Jesus. Inserted right there in the middle of this story is this woman. She doesn't have any name. She's been sick, and get this, for 12 years. It's no coincidence. She's been sick for as long as this little girl has been alive. It just makes those circles coming together have even more meaning. And she has no one to help her. The doctors have given up on her. They haven't been able to cure her. The priests consistently send her away to keep her in isolation because she too is unclean. She had heard what Jesus could do. And she had faith. But she couldn't just walk up to Jesus like Jairus did. She couldn't get too close too fast. She knew that everyone there despised her and avoided her because of her condition. She could have let her fear keep her away from Jesus. There's too many people there that day. It is too hard to get to Jesus. Would he reject her like everyone else? Because he's a holy man. But somewhere deep inside, maybe because of her own desperation, she mustered up enough courage to touch Jesus. You can almost hear her whisper that same prayer George Bailey prayed. Just that point of desperation, all she could get out. Help me. If I could touch Jesus, if I could just touch the hem of his garment. Now that's incredible faith. I know that Jesus can help me. If I can just get close, he can help me. So she risked the crowd, she risked the shame, and she went to Jesus in her own way. And her faith made her well. Now both of these are healing stories, but they're also faith stories. I think Mark is not just showing us the power of Jesus, but he does. A power so great, he can raise the dead. A power so great that just touching the hem of his garment, this woman is healed. But Mark's focus is not just on the power of Jesus, but he's showing the result of having faith. Jesus has compassion, and he wants to give. He wants to share. He wants to heal everyone. Jesus wants to heal us. Jesus wants to give his love to us. One thing we never, ever have to doubt: Jesus is faithful. The question is, do we have the courage to come to Jesus? Do we have the courage to step out and come and receive the gift that he has to offer us? There are so many things that can get in the way, that interrupt our lives from going the way we want them to go. We have health issues, we have financial issues, we have relation issues. And all of these things seem to interrupt the life that we have planned for us. We're doing everything the way we're supposed to do it. We've started at point A and we want to get to point B. And things kept getting in our way and interrupting us. I think Mark's gospel is saying that Jesus wants us to realize something. Don't look at it so much as an interruption, but look at it as an opportunity. Look at it at a time to listen for God's voice. Look at it as a time to seek God's guidance. These are opportunities for us to hear God more clearly, to grow closer to God. And when we get closer to God, then we find the courage to move on. When we let the circles of our lives intersect with others, we grow stronger. We grow more confident. We realize we're not in this life alone. When we let the circles of our lives be encompassed by God's life, then we realize our stories become richer and fuller and more complete. We realize that there is a God who cares about us. And we realize we have a community of faith that strengthens us. And that gives us the courage to act on our faith. That gives us the courage to bring our lives to Jesus so he can touch us and heal us and make us whole. Today we come to the table. God has prepared the meal for us, for all who will come and receive. We were talking earlier with someone about grace, This is God's grace. We haven't, it's not because we've made it from point A to point B. It's not because of anything that we've done that we deserve to come to this table. This is a gift freely given to all who will come. The feast has been prepared. But who has the courage to step forward? Who has the courage to step out and receive this gift of God through His Son, Jesus Christ? Remember, we come on our own, bringing with us all of our concerns and all of our joys, all of our fears and all of our faith, to let our lives be connected with Jesus. But we also come together as a church, one body, so we can bear witness to the power and to the life that God has offered to us in Jesus Christ, His Son, our Lord.